Hey guys, this is Miss Garner, and this video will go over how to find the distance between 2 points using the Pythagorean theorem. So on this Desmos activity, which you can find in your Google Classroom, this first slide is just a quick review, and we're just clicking all the statements that are true. So the first one, the Pythagorean theorem says that for all right triangles, a plus b equals c. That is not true. So remember, we can't just add the two legs together to get the hypotenuse. The second statement says the Pythagorean theorem says that for all right triangles, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. That is true. That is the definition of the Pythagorean theorem. So for all right triangles, the leg squared plus the other leg squared equals the hypotenuse squared. And we just usually use the letters a, b, and c. The third statement is the hypotenuse is always the longest side of a triangle. That is also true. So remember on Monday when we were doing the converse, we always set C to be the biggest number. This is because the hypotenuse is always the longest side. The next one is if a triangle is obtuse or acute, we can still use the Pythagorean theorem to find a missing side length. This is not true. So on Monday when we were doing the converse, we were given all three sides, and we were just classifying. So if we're actually finding a missing side length, it has to be a right triangle. The next one says the inverse of a squaring a number is to divide it by 2. Remember, inverse means the opposite action. So addition and subtraction are inverse. Multiplication and division are inverse. So those are two examples you can use to help you on this. So the opposite of squaring a number is not dividing, so that is not true. But the last one says the inverse of squaring a number is to take the square root. That is true. So remember, squares and square roots are inverse operations, and this kind of points back to that last step in the Pythagorean theorem when you take the square root in order to get your answer to be c equals whatever it is. So to get rid of that square, remember that last step is to take the square root. So those are the 3 true statements for our review today. What we'll be doing today in class is finding the distance between 2 points. So you will see these notes here. These are kind of here to help you if you get stuck. But all we will be doing today is drawing a triangle on our grid, counting the boxes to figure out the lengths of your 2 legs, and then solving for the hypotenuse, which you guys are used to doing. So if we look at our example here, you will see that we are finding the distance between these 2 points. So I'm going to go ahead and make a line between those 2 points. This is what I'm trying to find. I'm trying to figure out what is that distance of that red line. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to make a triangle out of this. So the key here is that your triangle can only be comprised of a vertical and a horizontal line. So it's got to be perfectly straight up and down and then perfectly straight sideways. And this is because we want to be able to use these boxes to count for units. So if you look at our red line, notice that it cuts diagonally across the boxes. Because of this, we can't count the distance just by counting boxes. That's why when we're drawing our triangle, I want to draw it so that it's straight up and down. It goes along the lines of the boxes and not through it. And then straight sideways. Okay, so there's my triangle. Notice that you can also draw the triangle on top of your line. I could have also done this triangle. So it doesn't matter whether you did the green triangle or the blue one, it will give you the same answer. So the triangle can either be above that line or below it. I'm going to go ahead and do the blue one just to keep it simple. Okay, so now that I have my triangle, notice that my vertical and horizontal line creates that right angle. So I know I can use my Pythagorean theorem. So I'm actually going to be solving for this distance here, which is my hypotenuse. My next step is I want to figure out my 2 legs. So what are the distance of the legs? So in this case, I'm going to count my boxes. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So this side length is 4. And then on the bottom, I have 1, 2, 3. So this side length is 3. Once you've done this, it becomes just like a regular Pythagorean theorem problem that you are used to solving. So over here On the notepad, I will go ahead and solve this out. So remember, you're going to do 3 squared plus 4 squared. 3 times 3 is 9. 4 times 4 is 16. Remember, because we are solving for the hypotenuse, we're adding. So 9 plus 16 equals 25. And remember that last step, technically this is still equaling c squared. I don't want the square there, so I have to take that square root. So take the square root of both sides. That gets rid of your square on the right, so you get c equals, and then the square root of 25. Remember, this is just a calculator problem. Type that into your calculator. This equals 5. So the distance that I'm looking for, this red line here has a distance of 5. So once again, just a quick recap, guys. When you are solving these types of problems, you are going to be given 2 points. So if we look at our picture again, let me clear this off. These 2 red points here, we have 1, 2, and -2, -2. The first thing I do is I like to do a line between those 2 points because that is what I'm going to be solving for. So I'm going to be looking for that distance. And in order to do that, I'm going to draw a right triangle. That way I can use the Pythagorean theorem. So I'm going to draw my right triangle. So I go straight up and down along the lines of my boxes and then straight sideways. And once I've done this, now I can go ahead and count my units and figure out my legs. So once again, there are 4 boxes here. So your side length on the vertical side is 3. There are 3 boxes along the bottom. So we know our 2 legs are 4 and 3. And in order to solve for that distance, now we just plug it into the Pythagorean theorem, solving for the hypotenuse. Just a quick heads up, if you look at the rest of the problems, notice that the scale has changed. So notice that each of these boxes, the big boxes, are worth 5. So if you're going to count individual boxes, make sure you look at those smaller, lighter ones in between there. And that is finding the distance between 2 points using the Pythagorean theorem.